Nearly every moment of every day, something is trying to get in, trying to enter the mind. It could be a headline, it could be fear, judgment, a memory, a belief, a voice from the past, a comment that you heard about someone else or from someone else, a story about who you are, a story about what is possible, a story about what you should be afraid of. But here's the problem. Most of us aren't very good at guarding the gate. We'll let anything in, let anything speak, we'll let anything plant itself in our deeper minds, right? And then we'll wonder why we feel anxious and powerless and angry, distracted, or most of all, disconnected. The conscious mind is the watchman at the gate. It is the part of us responsible for protecting the rest of us, mostly our subconscious, from false impressions, from things we didn't agree to, harmful suggestions and the like, or ideals that don't belong there. For Ashla, for us here, the mind is an inner temple, and the Luminari must learn to guard that temple with awareness, presence, discernment, and truth. So today we'll be talking about guarding the inner temple. We're talking about the thoughts, beliefs, and suggestions, media, fears, whatever is repeated into those inner statements that impress themselves upon our subconscious. The things that begin shaping how we think, feel, and live. And this matters because the deeper mind is always being shaped by something. The question I leave you with here is whether it's being shaped by truth, wisdom, compassion, or by fear, noise, and unconscious programming. I'm Justin Gates. Joining me today is Michael Perry.
Hey, fam.
And you're listening to the new Ashla Podcast. Hello and welcome to the new Ashla Podcast. We're so happy that you've joined us today. Today we're going to be talking about guarding our inner temple. What is our inner temple, Michael?
Man, I think the easiest way to phrase it is our inner peace, our inner knowing, because we're so impressionable and it's so easy to be taken for a ride that it's important that we're able to create that separation from input and self.
Yeah, and this episode we're going to talk about how our thoughts, beliefs, and suggestions, these things, and even like all these social influences impress upon our temple, upon our subconscious mind, and begin shaping our emotional state, our behaviors, our identity even. Really our relationship with life. So, and this is sacred work. This isn't just one and done. This must become a discipline. We must always guard that inner temple so that our deeper self is not shaped by these things, right? Not by every fear and every opinion and everything, every cultural message that we don't really need to be allowing in. But we don't guard this with paranoia, do we? We guard it with presence. And not because the world is so unbelievably evil, but because the inner world is sacred, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's so easy to get lost into groupthink, in the mentalities of things going on around us, in opinions and thoughts and tangents, in self-identification. You know, there's so much that happens in life. There's so many different things in our life that can impact us, from our friends and family, the media we consume, the news we take in, the books we read. Anything can become something that impresses upon us. We are very impressionable. And it's important to stay firm and stay present with who you are as a person and what you do truly value.
Yeah, and there's a very easy distinction between people who are very impressionable and people who aren't, right? Because that gate to our inner temple is always open unless we are actively present and guarding it from things that doesn't need to be there. We need to make sure that we're there, allowing words and images, emotions and stories and things that help us, that grow us, not things that cause us to be afraid, or things that give us unrealistic expectations, or beliefs that aren't good for us. And some of these things are obvious, right? Some of these things, the sources are obvious: news, and social media, or conversations with your coworkers or your family members, even like movies and music. But others are way more subtle than that. Like the old memories, the old wounds, family conditioning, right, that we all get. Religious messaging, cultural assumptions, these things. Michael, when you think about the idea that the gate is always open, right, unless we're there guarding it and making sure that we are really agreeing with the things that are coming through, where do you see people absorbing things without realizing it?
You know, the one that comes to mind, ironically, isn't outside input, but it is the stories our minds tell us. When we are not present at the gate to see things as they are, to question things, that is one of the biggest things that can just take us for a ride. As we hear something, we go through a triggering experience, we experience something going on in life, and we start telling ourselves a story about it. And instead of realizing our minds are just processing the event, we begin identifying with it. This person affronted me, or these people are judging me. It's this constant stream that comes through this gate unless you're mindful enough to be like, is this reality, or is this what I'm making meaning out of reality?
Right. That's a very perfect, yes. Because not everything comes from truth. Right?
Yeah.
Some of these things are inherited, and we don't even know where we inherit them from sometimes. Sometimes it's obvious, but most time it's not. Some of these things are absorbed from the environments we're in, the people we're around. And to your point, some of these things are repeated so often that they begin to feel like us, like we own them. So, like, for example, a person might think, I am not enough, or I can't do this. The world is unsafe. Or your favorite, nothing ever works out for me, right?
Yep.
But never stop to ask where that thought comes from. Or if it's even true. Or if it's even yours. Is it aligned with your greater good? Or is it something that you accepted and agreed to without realizing it? Because you just put your stuff on auto apply or auto accept, right?
Yep. Well, I think one of the dangerous things, the whole RAS system, right? When we buy a new car, we see it everywhere. When we have that little unconscious shift where we start believing something, we are going to look for any piece of evidence that confirms that reality we want to witness. You're seeing this happening a lot in politics, you know? You don't like someone who's in politics, and then now anything that happens automatically is just stuff you're feeding into the narrative you're telling yourself about it. Same with people as a whole, or how you perceive life to be. You feel life is dangerous, and so you watch TV shows that show people who are dealing with adversity and who are maybe rejected by society, and you're like, see, I identify with this. This is how reality is. And it's because that gate is wide open.
Right. And this is why I teach at Ashla here that this is an inner temple. And I teach you to think of it as having doors and having windows, and that inside of those things is a sacred space. And because it's sacred, cannot allow everything. Not everything belongs there. Right? And we don't do this out of hate or fear of the world. We guard it because it must be protected and cultivated. There's an axiom that kind of hits this point home for us. Do not attach to that which is wicked and unjust. If a thought or deed is not in union with the precepts and principles of light, then stand away from it. Because this is not just about any kind of outer behavior, or any kind of outer environment, really. It's about inner attachment, right? Sometimes we attach ourselves to these thoughts that don't even belong to us. We didn't even remember agreeing to, that bring us down. They diminish us, or fear that distorts us, or judgments that harden us, right? Or the memories, Michael, that keep wounding you if you let them. Or to your point a little while ago, narratives that pull us away from truth.
I mean, there's so much when it comes to our belief systems, and belief systems are far more than, do you believe in God and what religion are you? It is, what is your inner mechanisms hold to be true values of how life operates around you? How does the world work and how do I fit in it?
Yeah.
And when we are overly identified with that, which most people are, it creates this restricted ability to not see the full picture, because we
Right.
care more about having our experience validated than we do about seeing it honestly.
Yeah. Yeah. And this axiom is instructing us to say, listen, if this is not aligned, then stand away from it. Do not let it take root. You do not have to entertain it. You do not have to rehearse it. It does not belong to you. Do not even accept it. You don't have to worry about returning it to sender. Just drop it, right? Certainly don't build a whole identity around it. That is discernment, and discernment here is a superpower. Discernment in this is that sacred pause before you let something in or you throw something out.
Well, another important thing with this is I mean, boundaries, right? Because it's not, again, people are a big part of this. Do people make you feel uplifted? Do they help you expand? Do they keep you in your bad habits? Do they bring you down or make you feel lesser than? It's learning the things that constantly give input to your inner world and setting boundaries with that, where you know where things stand and how they impact you. And this doesn't mean cutting toxic people off like is so big right now in the healing community, but it does mean establishing boundaries, speaking your mind so that you can hold that peace within you. I don't appreciate you just said that. Or this is something that bothers me that you do that makes me feel this way. It is being able to create environments that help you expand instead of retract. Because without communication, without discernment, these are things that can trickle into the gate, even if you think you are guarding it.
Right. Right. And this is where being impeccable with our words is important. Because not only are we planting seeds in others, but we must be impeccable with what words we allow in. Right? Because these suggestions, these words do become seeds that plant themselves in our mind. Right? And at first, like, look, it seems very dramatic for me to say that. I get it. But you're talking about just this barrage of seeds coming down onto your soil. You can't possibly pick out every single one, but you can certainly use that superpower of discernment and stand watch about the things that you can see. We don't get to see everything, right? Even those of us who have been doing it for a long time, it's very difficult for us to catch every single thing, right? Because it could be a single comment or a passing thought that we have. And a lot of the things we repeat, especially when we're like frustrated or angry or something, we do it without even really catching it. But if that suggestion is repeated enough times, and we start to accept it as being true, because it must be true, right? If it keeps happening over and over, it must be true. How do these suggestions become seeds? And where do you see people planting things or allowing things to be planted, carried by the wind without realizing it? Like, for example, self-talk, doom scrolling, whatever it might be.
So there's a couple different aspects to hit on this. I think one of the most important ones is the negativity bias. We could have 20 good things happen in a day, and if we have one decently bad event happen, our focus will be on that. We are very susceptible to negative input. And it can take one passing negative comment to impact us deeply, especially depending on our emotional mental state at that time. Mm-hmm. Seeds are planted through how they are presented. So I'm a big believer on, if you are going to confront someone on something, you don't do it in the heat of the moment or while you're triggered. Because you're probably going to end up making a lot more accusatory and a lot more just aggressive to the point it's not going to stick. It's being able to present things in a way that doesn't judge or villainize somebody, but that expresses how something impacts you and how something impacts you and your understanding of why they do it. So like I have a friend who loves to talk crap to all my friends. It is the one thing he loves to do.
It's his thing.
And I have had to sit down with this guy and be like, look, I know you're giving crap because you want to see people do better.
Mm-hmm.
You can't change people that way, and all you're doing is creating shame inside of them. Like, you have to dial it back and let people do them. You can offer advice, you can tell them what you think, but do not keep trying to push the envelope and then start shaming people for their shortcomings, because that's not going to help them improve it. And he was receptive to that. He's gotten better about it. He started detaching from our friends and the bad choices they make. He's getting better about it. And it's one of those things where we have to be able to create a space where we can bring up issues in a way that is, again, not judgmental, not criticistic, but create space for growth and improvement, because we are all capable of it. And I will be honest, some people are not receptive to this. Mm-hmm. People need to learn on their own time. I love it. Justin calls this the law of confusion, which is facts. The law of confusion states that you can tell someone everything they need to hear about getting life together, but until they learn the lesson themselves and can understand the lesson, they're not going to hear it. It will go in one ear and out the other. And we all know what that's like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And that's why I love the garden metaphor so much. Because all of these things, people's opinions, their suggestions, their advice, whether we ask them for it or not, they're seeds. And these seeds can produce good things, courage and clarity and peace, but they can also grow fear and resentment, right? Shame. Our deeper mind receives what we allow to plant. And sometimes those things come up as weeds, and we have to weed our garden. Because if we don't, guess what happens, right? It just grows crazy.
Yeah, wait till those roots get to your soul. You start believing those weeds.
Right. And this is why we always say repetition gives our practice strength. It helps our disciplines. It goes both ways, though, right? But those seeds are watered with emotions, which is why we're always kind of harping on emotions here and how we must learn to manage them, because they are the water that grows these seeds. They are the energy that gives those things power, one way or the other, right? When I say that duality is a lie, I don't mean that there aren't dual things in this world. I just mean that not everything that we think is evil is evil. Not everything we think is good is good. We must find balance between the two, right? It's really what we're saying. So the same thing applies here. What we repeat inside ourselves becomes harder for us to separate from who we believe we are over time, right? That's a big problem, right? Because Michael, if you repeat a fear long enough, it could actually start to sound like wisdom, couldn't it? Which is crazy.
I've been guilty of it.
Right. What do you think about this this axiom that I chose for this segment here? Approach understanding with light, and darkness will never gain purchase.
It makes me think of an important part of this. It's discernment. It's being able to see what we are experiencing, what is coming in, what's coming to that gate, and being able to metabolize it, for lack of a better phrase. You know, is this junk food that really just needs to be processed out and you're not going to get any value out of it? Or is this input that's something that could add benefit to your life? Is this something that could teach you a lesson? You know, it's being able to, as we're at the standing guard at the gate, it's being able to take in the input and decide, is this true for me? Being able to say, I don't believe this, and push it away. And again, I think that when this happens, often we have certain things that we tell ourselves, because a lot of this work is deconditioning ourselves. And when something touches those fears we have about ourselves, it's very easy for it to slide past the gate because we're approaching it wrong. It's no longer discernment. We're activated. We're pushing it away. And the more we push it away, the stronger it becomes.
Well said, Grasshopper. You hit it right. You hit the target right in the center. because light, one of the aspects of light is that it brings truth to things. And if you're not looking at these things from a lens of truth and reality, right? If you're not discerning what is aligned, what is true, what is useful, so on and so forth, then you are going to be in trouble. You're going to be in trouble. Well said. So, like all things, we don't do this with a sense of paranoia or urgency, right? And we have to make sure that we distinct that. It's a very important distinction. We're not saying that every difficult thought is dangerous, right? This goes back to duality's a lie. Not everything is dangerous. Not everything is good either, though, right? We have to, not everything uncomfortable is bad, right? Or every challenging thing should be avoided. In fact, you're going to cause yourself more problems when you do that. That is not discernment. That'd be fear pretending to be spirituality, right?
Yep.
Discernment is different. It is a superpower. You have the ability to examine something without immediately accepting it or also immediately throwing it out, right? It allows a thought or a feeling to appear without letting it become identity for you. It allows something to come before you without you having to give it some kind of authority that it doesn't deserve.
I mean, just to expand on what you're saying here, one of the most powerful things you can do at this gate is the more we can separate good and evil from our understanding of things, the more we can just take things as they are, the less there will be fear and the less there will be ego driving what we want to take in. The more we can just take things and look at things just as is, without trying to define it, without trying to make meaning out of it, the more we can look at things objectively and instead of identifying with.
Yeah, because a lot of people confuse discernment with avoidance, right? And they use avoidance as a way to protect their peace, I'm just trying to protect my peace. But you may actually be avoiding something you need to examine. And this really matters, not for this topic, but for this show and for the way we teach, right? And the way we practice, Michael, because avoidance oftentimes looks spiritual. And people say they're protecting their peace, but what they're really doing is avoiding growth and avoiding correction. Yeah, it's discomfortable. It's uncomfortable, but stop trying to avoid discomfort. Stop trying to avoid truth. And guarding the inner temple does not mean blocking every challenge. It means that refusing to let things that aren't true, or things that are fearful, or things that cause resentment, keeping those things, those distortions, from becoming the foundation of your inner world, right? So a lot of people do confuse discernment with avoidance. Where do you see this happening most often?
The two areas I see it happening the most is one, when it's hitting a trigger. So if it's something that we are deeply afraid about ourselves, for instance, it's say you are afraid to talk to girls, all right? And the minute you have someone say, "Hey, let's try to get you some practice. Let's put you out there." The resistance is going to come up, and that's when the gate's like, "No, go away. I don't want this. I don't want this." And again, discomfort. I love this because when we can see things as not truth, not taking everything as truth, but being able to look at things objectively instead of personally, we're able to remove our walls of resistance and see things more clearly, to gain a higher perspective over incoming information. Resistance comes from discomfort. It's the perfect word for it, because often when something's coming in and we don't want it in, you can ask yourself, is it that this is too uncomfortable of a truth? Is this hitting something deeper inside of me? Or is it that you don't feel this is aligned with the way you see the world? Which there can be variation here. And it doesn't mean the way you see the world is law, but these are the things that often create the distortion.
Yeah. Right. And of course, guarding the gate, as it were, guarding the temple is only half the work. right? The other half is choosing what we allow to impress upon ourselves, as much of it as we can catch. Sometimes there's some weeding to be done because we can't catch everything the wind brings in. And it's not enough just to reject a falsehood or a fear. We also have to cultivate our garden. We have to cultivate the temple with truth. It's not enough to just avoid fear. We have to practice courage, right? It's not just enough to stop the negative self-talk. You have to start speaking and thinking and acting in ways that align with positive, not just refusing the negative. There's always work to be done, right? So when you think about impressing the deeper mind or pressing things upon the deeper mind, where do you see us contradicting ourselves the most?
So this is kind of in line with what you were saying, but I think this is really an important thing for us to look at with this. How self-aware are we? How much do we understand ourselves intimately? Because often there's this divide that happens with most people who aren't self-aware. They have who they are behind the scenes and who they try to present as. Mm-hmm. And they do not like looking at this side of them. The mask becomes the identity. And when that happens, things that come in will be met with fear, will be met with the resistance. And it'll impress these insecurities even more in us because we know it to be true, but we refuse to acknowledge the truth about ourselves. Mm-hmm. The more divide we have in ourselves, the less aligned we are with who we truly are. And the less aligned we are with who we are, less aligned we are with who we truly are. That was a tongue twister. Jesus Christ. The more things we don't want to impress upon our minds will impress upon our minds and feed the shadow. Because the shadow is integration. That is what we need in order to have governance over this gate. And if we want things to impress upon our minds that are beneficial, again, affirmations, they don't work for most people. Why? Because they don't have the ability to embody the truth about it onto themselves. Instead, it's the repetition, which that does help. The more we tell ourselves something, the more we start to believe it. That's why after 1,000 times, you're like, why am I still struggling with this? It's because you haven't had that shift internally. There's still a divide between your unconscious mind and your conscious mind. And you must create synergy, and that includes accepting hard truths about yourself. It involves accountability. It involves honesty. And above all, it involves acceptance.
Yeah. Right. Because if you're only just saying the words without feeling them or giving them attention or acting upon, then they kind of float on the surface. But when you align with an affirmation, when you feel it in the body, when you repeat it and support it by action, right action that supports the affirmation you're asking for, it begins to move deeper. Just like with prayer, really all the spiritual practices that we teach here. And you know how I'm fond of not saying practices. We develop disciplines here. So our spiritual disciplines, our mental disciplines, our physical disciplines, all of it's the same thing. Prayer, meditation, your contemplation practices, your journaling. They're not just things we do to feel spiritual. They are ways of shaping the temple. They impress stuff deeper for us, the stuff that we want, right? So, and action matters because the subconscious doesn't only just learn from what we say, it learns from what we do, right? So if you say, I am disciplined, but never keep a promise to yourself, what is your deeper mind going to think? But if you say, I'm unworthy, but continue abandoning yourself for approval, boy, that gets down in there deep, doesn't it? Yeah. So the inner temple must be filled with what is worthy of living from. Truth and wisdom and courage and all these things. Patience, grace and mercy, right? The goal is not to keep darkness out. The goal is to make light and truth and all these things familiar within us. Do you have any closing thoughts for the show today?
If you're listening to this episode, this is so much more important than we've even been able to express. The inner gate, the gate that guards our soul from the world, that holds us and who we are and what we believe. This is one of the most pivotal places we have to cultivate diligence, because we are impressionable. That is what human nature has taught us to be. And without awareness, this gate is wide open for anything to come through. This is doing the work to cultivate a guard at this gate, to have discernment, to have truth and honesty, and above all, alignment, requires practice. Practice. Without this skill, without being able to truly create a defense from all things coming in and to be able to decide what you want to take in, you are at the mercy of the world around you. This takes time, this takes practice, and above all, it takes honesty. So, as you listen to our content, as you work with us as we go over these topics, this is all about integrating yourself so that you can be firm in your resolve and in your beliefs. And this is the bottleneck, for lack of a better phrase, where true individuality is cultivated and not modified by the reality around us.
Mm-hmm. So our exercise for this episode, we're gonna start practicing on how to guard our temple. And so for the next 24 hours, this is something that you should revisit every so often. You don't have to do this every day unless you really need to. But for the next 24 hours, notice what tries to enter into your space, into your mind, into your body. When you encounter a thought, a message, or a feeling of fear, or you catch this repeated ruminating statement inside there, pause and ask yourself, number one, is this true? Number two, is this aligned with who I am becoming, or I should be becoming, or I want to become? Does this lead me toward fear or toward truth? Is this something that I even want planted into my deeper mind? Right? That's probably one of the most important questions. Do I even want this in here? Does this deserve repetition? Or do I need to just flick it right out of the garden, right? Out of the temple. Off you go, pal, right? Then I want you to choose one intentional impression that you could repeat throughout the day. It could be, just here's some examples. I am guided by truth. I'm guided by light. I do not give my fear authority over my inner world. My mind is a sacred space, and I choose what I cultivate within it. Things like that. So it's a very simple exercise. It's basically just forcing yourself to pay attention, right? To practice seeing what's coming in and what you're kicking out. You want to add anything to that, Michael?
No, I think that's great.
Our affirmations for today. I guard my inner world with awareness, wisdom, and peace. I do not accept every thought, fear, or suggestion as truth. My mind is a sacred place, and I choose what I allow to take root. I impress my deeper mind with truth, courage, compassion, and light. And I am the watchman at the gate of my inner temple. And our journal prompts for today. And you can use these in conjunction with the exercise too. Really kind of help you flesh this out. What thoughts or messages have I accepted without questioning? And just find one. Just start with one. Because if you're anything like me, there's going to be a lot. Right? What repeated inner statement is shaping how I see myself? It's another very powerful one, because that's where all other things are going to come from. Where has fear-based messaging influenced my emotional state? Right? This kind of goes back to the social media and the news and all this stuff. What do I need to stop allowing into my inner world? In other words, you're starting to catch on to something, but you're still allowing it in. What do you need to stop allowing in? And what truth do I need to consciously plant and reinforce? And it goes back to the exercise. So once you catch up, reinforce it and purposely, consciously plant something better. So despite what you think about the person that you may not be fond of, our minds are not empty. They're not an empty space. They are sacred ground. And something is always being planted there, either by you or by people that you give power over you, or simply carried by the wind. And this is brought to us by through what we watch, what we hear, what we're repeating, so on and so forth. So, and what you accept, the inner world is being shaped by every day. This is why it's very important that we must become watchmen for our temples. Not because the world is something to fear, but because our inner temple is something that it's more important to honor. Not every thought deserves your agreement. Not everything deserves your attention, right? Not everything deserves your authority. And quite honestly, not everyone around you deserves residence in your mind. So the work here is discernment. It's to pause before accepting. It's to question before repeating. To feel first before you decide if you're going to obey or not. So, and then just as important, to plant what is true, to cultivate good things like courage, to cultivate and reinforce compassion, right? These things. So as you move forward from this episode, guard your gate. Watch what you let in. Watch what you repeat. Watch what you allow to become familiar. And remember, what enters the mind eventually shapes our thoughts, our motives, our actions, our whole identity. So be very careful. If this episode resonated with you, please share. Share it, Michael. Michael's not very good at sharing either. I had to get him sharing.
Crack the whip there.
Right? Where can they share all our stuff, Michael? Where can they find all our stuff?
You know, you got the TikToks, the Instagrams, the YouTubes, the Spotifys, the Apple Podcasts. We're everywhere. You know, if this did resonate with you, if you think it could help someone you know, please do share it. Like, subscribe. That helps support us. And also, best website ever, newashla.com.
Ashla.com. Listen, guard your inner temple, guys. Cultivate truth and light. Walk with discernment. It is a superpower, one that you can develop. We love you guys very much. With love and gratitude, ad lucem.
Ad lucem.